Hello and welcome to The Queer Gaze, a gay movie podcast dedicated to examining queer representation and issues.
We're continuing our cruising theme with Nate Dushku's feature debut, Birder. And if you want to hear more of the discussion, including our Chili Pepper Award, please support The Queer Gaze at patreon.com/thequeergaze.
You'll also get early access to regular main feed episodes and extra content for every single episode.
And you can follow us on social media at The Queer Gaze.
So I have a question for you, Joe.
Yes. Tell me everything, because I just put on my clothes specifically so I could record this with you.
I was going to ask you if you like camping.
So fun fact, I actually used to camp regularly with my father, but it was more of a hiking into the wilderness, 7 or 8 kilometers, setting up a tent, having to use pills to clean the water because you couldn't carry it in and so on. So my definition of camping is slightly different from, I think, most gay men's experience, which is perhaps more akin to the film that we're talking about today.
So what film is that?
All right, so folks, we are talking, yes, about Nate Dushku, as in the brother of Eliza Dushku from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This is his feature film debut, written by his partner, Amnon Lourie. And Birder follows Kristian Brooks, who is played by Michael Emery, who is a birdwatcher. ? I think the movie tries to mine comedy from birdwatcher also being colloquial for maybe queer, but also maybe colloquial for being a serial killer. And yeah, so Kristian invades a nude queer campground in the New Hampshire wilds, ensnaring locals with his dark fetish, which is, of course, strangling them to death and then hiding the bodies.
Oh, marvelous.
Yeah. So, Conrad, this was a first-time watch for you. I'd previously seen and covered this on Horror Queers with Trace, but I'm curious because I sometimes feel like I don't always have a good appreciation of your comedy. So, did this satisfy you? Did you like this film?
I did, yeah. I was surprised because I thought that it was going to be very low budget. I thought that given the subject matter and the explicit nature of the material, because...
Oh, yes.
Let's face it, he invades a nudist colony. There's an awful lot of nudity, and we are not being shy about it.
No.
I would have thought that, the cast that you would get for that would be variable in terms of their professional experience, perhaps, and that the end result would be uneven.
Oh my God, you're so British. Stop this. You thought that the acting was going to be shit because they were all going to be porn stars.
Something like that, yes. But I was pleasantly surprised, and particularly, it's so well written.
Yes.
I was really enjoying the dialogue and laughing out loud quite regularly.
The dialogue is probably 75% of the selling feature for me because it's so laced with innuendo, like sexual innuendo, but then because he's a serial killer on top of that, all of these lines of dialogue work in another way to suggest, like, there's one point where he says, "I'm going to fuck you so hard, I'm going to murder you." And you're like, yes, and yes, that is exactly what is going to happen in both accounts.
Yes. Do you want me to destroy you? And I want to choke you out while you're coming with me inside you. I want to see your lights go out.
Yes.
And we've spoken about this. It's particularly relevant in our cruising section, how this is all wrapped up in the theme of gay men seeking sex in situations that are potentially dangerous,
right?
And how this translates over also into the S&M culture, perhaps. And yeah, we're playing in that territory, but also with a serial killer who's able to co-opt all of this language and say it without an ounce of irony because he's actually going to kill people.
Yes, he is. Yeah, I think part of the reason that the film ends up working is because it's not presented as a mystery because our main character is the killer. So we're not trying to hide, this isn't an 80s slasher set at a summer camp that just happens to feature nudity. And, by the end of the film, it's going to be revealed, oh, it's this person and they've been killing folks all along. We know from nearly the very first scene that Kristian is actively killing people. And it just becomes a question of, will he get caught? What are his true motivations? Is he ever being sincere? And will we get to know anything more about him? And I think all of those are question marks that are, open for us to have some conversation about, because as much as I do like the script, I think that there are a number of interesting either plot holes or deliberate gaps. Like, there are certain things that don't entirely make sense, and part of me thinks that it is by design, but it leaves the film in this really interesting space where you realize there are certain things that we will just never truly understand about some of these people.
Okay, I'm interested to explore that. I mean, certainly in terms of our main character, Kristian Brooks, the significance of his name did not escape me. Is interesting. I do love films that center on a sociopathic murderer.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite genres, actually. I'm a huge fan of Patricia Highsmith's Ripley books. I very much enjoyed Saltburn, especially sitting in the theatre and in America, actually, and laughing my arse off whilst an entire audience was completely baffled and frequently horrified. And I was
come on,
killing myself laughing, and enjoyed it immensely. I love exploring these characters and exploring their motivations and enjoying their outside-in perspective from clearly a very extreme psychology. Yeah. And he is unknowable. And I think if there are any inconsistencies in his character, you can certainly assign that to his own modus operandi, which he explains at one point, which I found quite powerful. Michael Emery is very good in this lead role.
Oh, he's so good. Yeah.
Yeah. And he is talking to Patrick, one of the campers, and he says, I'm whatever I need to be to make people trust me.
Yes.
So very much like the talented Mr. Ripley, he is different identities in any given situation, which makes you wonder whether any of them align with his authentic self.
Yeah. Okay, so let me press you. First, I want you to unpack the Kristian Brooks name thing, just to make sure that people understand why that's significant. But then the other piece of it is I would like to hear you speculate on why he kills certain people and not others over the course of this film.
That's an interesting one. Well, the name, it has a dichotomy in it. So his first name is Kristian, which of course has religious connotations. It speaks to a social structure, an enforced way of living your life. Let's put it that way. And then you have Brooks, which is running water, nature, change.
Right.
So immediately you have this conflict between something that's been imposed by society and something that is perhaps freer, more authentic, more innate, more of who you truly are. And he has both of these things in his name. You feel as though he has a conflict within him around these two things as well. In terms of why he kills, I saw an interview with the actor where he said he'd come up with a whole backstory around the character's father.
Oh, okay.
There was a hint of some abuse there, or at least emotional neglect, if not physical. There was a sense that there wasn't a mother. And eventually he came to the conclusion that in terms of choking people to death while he's having sex with them, because they ask for it, he gets off on.
Right.
Whereas what differentiates the ones that he leaves alone? He doesn't leave many people alive.
He doesn't. And some of the characters we're uncertain about where he leaves them, right? So, okay, let me run through the list. So we have Henley, who is introduced as a drag queen, played by Chris Cologne, and very sexually, not quite aggressive, but, making our intentions clear right from the jump. So this is the first person that Kristian meets.
Yeah, he's playful.
Very playful, yes. We have Ranger Delilah, or D, who is played by Delilah Dubois. So Kristian doesn't sleep with this character, but he does kill her. And you could argue that this is a bit of a self-defense piece where we're trying to make sure that we don't get caught by the only person at the camp with any sort of authority, even though she's also the one who's passing out mushrooms and, encouraging safe sex and doing all these other fun things. So she's the closest thing that we have to something like a police presence. He doesn't kill Matthew, who is played by David J. Cork, and his masseur boyfriend, James, who is played by Ryan Serwonko. But the insinuation is that he would have liked to. The issue is that they left early. But I always read this as, oh, well, he's going to go to that Boston brownstone and track them down after he leaves this camp. So it's like they have an expiration date. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, they left their forwarding address. Not a good idea.
No. We have 2 of the 3 Kyles, which I think is actually one of the biggest plot holes in the film. So we kill 2 of the Kyles who all look identical. They're almost impossible to tell apart. But they're presented as a trio, and then he only kills 2 of them, and we never see the third one.
No.
Which is maybe the joke. I don't know. But I think you could also read it the other way.
Yeah, quite possibly.
We have Corbin, who is the vortex bottom that everybody gets to have a go at, and this one is definitely asking for it. This is the second time I've seen the film, and I caught it during his death sequence in Henley's cottage, that there's maybe a pre-existing relationship between the two of them. It's either that or just Corbin was meant to die during the first sexual interaction and then didn't, so he knows who Kristian is. So he's kind of leveraging that as blackmail. I think that's the more likely case, but I do love this idea that this Twinkie bottom is so voracious and so just adept at sex that he can survive being manually strangled to death by this serial killer and then come back for more.
Yeah, it's quite delightful. I put that in the margin alongside Delilah as killed in self-defense because Corbin challenges him.
Yes. Yeah. And it does seem like Kristian has a kind of etiquette where if people want to be fun and playful or they ask for him to do things, then he will accommodate them. But he doesn't like it when people are cross or if they challenge him. So you're right. There's that. The final set of important characters. So there is Jess Davis's Sam. This is the non-binary black psychiatrist. And then their partner, Cody Sloan's Patrick, who is a trans man. And this, to me, was the most exciting inclusion in this film because I definitely went into it thinking it was just going to be, a boys-only gangbang kind of thing. So I like that we're getting trans representation, we're getting non-binary representation, and this couple, we don't have a sense of where we leave them. So Kristian does sleep with them, and we never see if they're still alive in their tent at the end of the film.
No, we don't. I like to think he left them alone, though.
I hope so. I mean, here's the thing. I think they're among the more interesting characters in the film. They also last the longest. And I mean, I think the other interesting thing, there's one extra set of characters, which is the Sachs family. So this is a trio that Kristian meets before he gets to Lotus Cove, the clothing optional camp. So the father is David, played by Miles Crawford. He has a wife named Sue, who is played by Jill Josie. And then we have a queer-coded teenage son named Ben, who is played by Taylor Petrasic. And we definitely kill this father. And then it's unclear what happens or if the son sees anything, but I like that we have multiple psychologists. There are 3 different psychiatrists or psychologists to the point that the screenplay actually makes a joke about it, but it does offer us a certain amount of insight into who characters are because of the conversations we have with them.
Yeah, it has one of those scenes where one of the people who are at the camp introduce Kristian to all of the different groups who were there. So it sort of reminds me of Heathers, for example, or something
Here's
like
the
that.
cafeteria scene of every character or group that you need to know.
Those are the Kyles. They're all publishers. You can't tell them apart. It's very, very funny. It is. Yeah. It did remind me of that very much. Yeah, and the psychologists are introduced as being experts in dangerous neurodivergence. In fact, they're even reading a book on it at one point while sitting next to Kristian, and they just cannot see him for who he is. Which is fascinating and wryly funny.
Yeah. I will say, I think my favorite scene in terms of if you're trying to gain actual insight into who Kristian is, because we get a lot of enjoyment out of watching him manipulate people and be a person that they want to either have sex with or get to know. You know, he's so popular as the new person in this camp, and there seems to be pre-existing relationships. All these other folks are comfortable with each other. They maybe already been here for parts of the summer. But on the first night, everybody's sort of sitting around the fire and we decide, okay, we're going to do shrooms. And Kristian has this almost crisis where he worries that he will lose himself. What if he does the drugs and he reveals something of who he truly is, and he starts crying and Patrick has to console him. And you initially think that he's going to sleep with Patrick. This is the trans man, because they start to make out, and then Kristian leaves. And part of it could be the drugs. Part of it could be that he actually sees and respects this trans man in a different way than he does with somebody like Corbin, who is just like a dumb slut. And I say that with love. Corbin, we've all met a Corbin. So, but I love this interaction because it feels like Kristian on drugs loses a sort of control of this masquerade, this, mask of normalcy. And Patrick starts to see through him and makes a genuine connection. And Kristian doesn't know how to deal with that. And that's why he leaves. But you can tell this all goes unsaid, that Patrick thinks it's because he is a trans man that Kristian didn't want to continue any further. Or at least that's how I interpret it.
No, you're absolutely right. He looks very sad. But it's interesting what Kristian says earlier on, where they're talking about, the possible effect that taking shrooms will have on him, because he says that he's never done it before, and they're mocking him for being a mushroom virgin. Yeah. And somebody says to him, you may experience uncomfortable truths. And he says, I don't think I've known a comfortable truth.
Yeah.
So this is a man who's worried about having all of that taken away from him and then discovering who he really is, and for everyone to be able to see it. And I'm not even sure there is anything beneath all of that. I think that's probably what he's most terrified about. And I think he has a bit of an existential crisis, which is why he can't get it up and have sex with someone and murder them. So he has to wander off into the woods.
Instead, we just have to hang out in a canoe on the lake and maybe plot who we might murder next.
Well, I don't know. Is he staring at the middle-class family who are definitely not part of the camp, who are holidaying in their summer home? Is he looking at them with envy?
I don't know, because he makes a specific point about how he doesn't have a cell phone, he doesn't stay in places for very long, and I think the easy read of that is that he's a serial killer and he keeps killing people and then he has to keep moving on, because if not, he'll get caught. But I think there's also an alternative read, which is, as you suggested, by virtue of his name, he is easygoing. He's interested in nature. He's not interested in owning things. The only time we see him engage with capitalism or talk about material goods is when he needs to buy material so that he can camp. And of course, he doesn't pay for it. He just murders this Indigenous woman who owns a store and then takes the rainbow pride blanket so that he can keep warm at night.
Yes. And let's not forget the bearskin rug, which he then wanders around in. So there's a bear in camp, everyone.
It's just another style of performance, isn't it?
It really is, yes. He is a wolf in bear's clothing, which is another thing that they mine for all of its comedy gold in terms of the double entendre.
Yeah. Okay, maybe before we transition over to Patreon, can you walk me through your thoughts on his interactions and the way that it's framed with this middle-class family? So we meet them, initially the film opens with him out in the boat with the father, David. And then we think he has killed David because we see him burning all of the clothes in a campfire, and then he moves on. But the very next scene is him at this gas station meeting David and his family. So we understand, oh, this is some kind of flashback, or that first scene took place in the future. But then over the course of the film, he'll end up meeting David a second time where they're fishing on the dock. And Kristian swims up and, we have a bit of a conversation. And then later on, he goes out onto the boat with David so that he can give him a blowjob. What did you think of these scenes? Because it feels like these interactions are markedly different from a lot of the other scenes set at camp.
Yeah, these were the ones that I found the most fascinating, actually, and had the most poignant moment for me. I was so thrown off by this because I thought this was setting him up as the typical predator who's going to break his way into your perfect nuclear family home and fuck stroke kill your children, not sure which is worse, especially when he's gay. And it certainly looks like it's headed that way. I mean, that kid is so queer-coded and so clearly interested in Kristian. It's unbelievable.
My favorite in this scary predatory fashion is when, Kristian walks up and starts talking to the teen before the parents come out, and we get that, introductory moments. But he basically says, oh yeah, I'm going up to, Lotus Cove. And then he ends the interaction by basically saying, like, maybe I'll see you there in a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you've come out, when you're ready, I'll be there. We can dick down. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty explicit. Yeah. So when he ends up turning his attentions towards the father, I was genuinely shocked.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I guess he is an equal opportunity flirter when he's wandering around in just his Speedos. He's clearly putting himself on display and peacocking for everyone that's on that particular wharf. But when he, talks to the father, talks about how he's coping with family life, how much of a strain it must be, how much of a burden. Does he even know who he is anymore, other than as a father or a husband? Is his partner really a partner? Is it as enjoyable as it could be? And then just says, unzip your fly, you're going to come in my mouth. And the thing that I found so compelling, and Miles Crawford's performance here was my favorite performance in the whole movie.
Okay.
Because his reluctance and his desperation are so compelling. You really
palpable.
Feel them.
And here's the thing. I think Michael Emery is really, really good at balancing the different shifts in character and tone. So he can do comedy, he can do sinister and intimidating, he can do deeply romantic. Like, you understand why people are drawn to him. I think he's incredibly charismatic as a performer. He has chemistry with pretty much every single person in this film. Like, you almost want to see Kristian fuck everyone because everybody gets along. But this moment on the boat is hot. Like, it is so hot. And it's not even dirty talk, but it's verging on dirty talk. Like, spoiler alert for the Chili Pepper Award, but, like, we actually see him fuck a bunch of people, and I still think that this is the hottest scene in the film.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. I might shock you with mine. It's interesting how the film is not as exploitative as you might think it could be.
No.
In fact, many of the sex scenes feel almost perfunctory. It's a quick shot of this, you'll get a shot of kissing, you'll get a shot where somebody's head is going downwards, and then you'll get a shot of full-on penetrative sex, but it'll be 1 second and gone the next. It does not linger on anything particularly. No. And the boat scene, when things actually start to happen, the camera retreats to the other side of the lake. Yeah. But it's still the most powerful scene in the film, I think, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So with that one, I wonder, what is that and why does he kill him? And part of me was thinking about another film that I really love, 1 Hour Photo, the Robin Williams movie.
Oh, yes.
Where he is clearly going to, or he is tempted to kill the father because he has proven himself to be
a bad father or a bad husband.
Father. Unreliable, yes.
Yeah.
It is possible to seduce him. It is possible to get him to destroy the family. And for that reason, he deserves to be punished.
Yeah. You disappointed me in the same way that the people who challenge Kristian need to be put in their place or taken care of and so on.
Yeah, that was the way that I read it. But I may just be bringing something to it that isn't there. Who knows?
I think the film is so open-ended, it actually invites all of these different types of readings. So I can't say that you're wrong because I can't say anything that would suggest I'm more right, which is part of the reason I really, really enjoy the film.
Yeah, it's great. It's a bright and breezy 90 minutes, as long as you don't mind a little bit of full frontal in your movie.
This is true. Yes. Okay. Well, why don't we transition over to Patreon so we can talk a little bit more about those throbbing members? So, folks, if you want to join us, we'll have a completely different conversation, elaborate, go into a bit more detail. But yeah, we do this for every single episode. So you can support the show for as little as $3 just over on patreon.com/thequeergaze. And of course, you can also shoot us a message if you want to. We're on socials at The Queer Gaze. Or you can send us an email at thequeergazeshow@gmail.com. And if you don't want to join us on Patreon, we will tell you that we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Not done with cruising yet, Conrad, because I have the perfect accompaniment. We're going to stay at the clothing optional cruising grounds, only we're going to go French. So we're going to talk about Stranger by the Lake, the 2013 Alain Girardi film.
Ooh, sounds fun.